Fubab. I'm the research director here at the university, and today I'll serve as your moderator. I just want to start as a point of clarification. I had this question, Dylan, that people kept asking us. Why does the university need a Belize Policy Research Institute when we have a research office? And so I want to make that clarification quite clear this morning, that the role of the research office is to build, coordinate, and facilitate the research capacity of the university. So I negotiate, bring people together, and point them in all kinds of direction. And the Belize Policy Research Institute, which is one of our newest institutes. In fact, Dylan, you just had your birthday, but the actual birthday of the institute on the 24th of March. So with that said, it's an Aries institute. I just had my birthday, and so we know that this is going to go really well. So first, I want to acknowledge Belpre's first anniversary on the 24th of March. So Belpre is our newest institute, and they actually do the research. So I tell them what to do, and no, that's not how it is. And so we are really honored that we are here today for this launch of the Belize Policy Tracker that Belpre has produced. I want to start by acknowledging our protocol list. So we acknowledge the presence of our Minister Osman Martinez, Minister of State in the Ministry of Economic Transformation. We acknowledge our own President, Dr. Vincent Palacio, President of UB. I acknowledge all the representatives of the embassies. There are several. I've seen the Taiwanese member here, and all the other international agencies that are there here. We acknowledge the CEOs of various government ministries present and other representatives of government and public agencies. I see NITCH, I see the Library Service. We're happy to have you here. We acknowledge the presence of the UB Board of Trustees members, as well as the board of Belpre, our deans, our faculty members, our faculty chairs, our program chairs, professors, lecturers, students here at UB, as well as from other educational institutions, our ATLib partners. We see representatives here. And of course, the staff of Belpre, who you see at the back, and I'm sure Dr. Vernon will acknowledge, and the staff of the research office who are also here in the audience supporting. And to those who are tuned in our live stream, welcome to this event. Let us please stand for the national anthem. While we remain standing, let's take 1 minute of silence to commune with whoever is our higher power and really to ensure that we are all present and focused here this morning at this launch. Good. And so, as a matter of introduction, turn to the people on your left and on your right and greet them and say hello to them because you're going to be spending the next couple hours with them in this space. All right, and once you're through with your greetings, you may be seated. So our agenda is up on the board. You've probably scanned for the agenda. And so we really want the program to flow along very smoothly. And so having established the protocol list, I also want to remind you that this event is being live streamed on Facebook. And I would like to call to the podium now our own president to give our words of welcome.
I like when she said, our own president. Thank you very much, Dr. Defoe Bob, our moderator for this morning. Very, very important event. I initially submitted my regrets to not being here. I had a board meeting scheduled at the same time in another district. And yesterday afternoon, I received a call that we wouldn't have quorum for the meeting. And normally what I would do, I would get on the phone myself to try to make quorum. I said, okay, fine. No quorum, no meeting. And I sent a message on to Deland that I would be here. I've been seeing the progress of this tracker for too long to not be here to launch it. Very important. Good morning, Minister Martinez, Minister of State for Economic Transformation, friends from the embassies, diplomatic community, friends from the tertiary level institution, President from Sacred Heart, welcome to the university. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the President of our Student Government Association. Welcome, sir. A pleasure. Any other persons from the university, our invited guests, special invited guests, welcome to this event. Also, welcome to the University of Belize, our central campus. Minister Martinez, a particularly warm welcome to you, sir. It is always good to receive you here at UB, but it is especially meaningful to do so knowing that you return not only as a public official, but as one of our own, an alumnus of this institution. Welcome, sir. Yeah. You reminded us of your time at our Central Farm campus, how you used to create riots and rebellions and all the fun stuff. Dr. Quay. Just a few months ago, you addressed us at our Quebec event in Punta Gorda. And you also addressed us when we celebrated our 25th anniversary down there in Punta Gorda as well. So today, let me simply say how glad we are to see you here again. Welcome back to UB. We gather this morning for the launch of the Belize Policy Tracker. And it is fitting that we pause to ask why such a tool matters. I have a feeling we're preaching to the choir here, but it's important for us to remind ourselves. The former Prime Minister, Said Musa, posed the question plainly in the year 2000 here in Belmopan in an address to the Assembly of Caribbean Community Parliaments. He said, "How do we then update our institutions, reform our democratic structures and our systems of governance to make them more meaningful and responsive to the call of our peoples for greater participation, accountability, and transparency?" This was in the year 2000. That question remains with us. The Belize Policy Tracker is one practical response, a means of bringing greater visibility, continuity, and public access to the policies that shape our life, that shape our country. For if policy gives direction to national life, should it not also be visible to the nation? If it shapes the conditions under which people live, under which we learn and work and hope, should it not be accessible to those whose lives it touches? And if we speak seriously of participation, accountability, and transparency, then how can we be satisfied with a public culture in which policy is not often difficult to find, not difficult to follow, and too easily left to fragment memory or to opinion? This initiative responds to that condition. The Belize Policy Tracker is, in one sense, a practical tool, but in another, a deeper sense, it reflects institutional seriousness. It affirms that public policy ought not to drift beyond public reach. It affirms that the record of national intention matters. It helps bring greater clarity and continuity to the way national decisions are followed and understood. At the University of Belize, we believe that serious scholarship must serve the public good. Research must do more than interpret national life from a distance. It must help illuminate the choices before us. It must give shape to public understanding. It must strengthen the quality of the conversations by which a country comes to know itself. That is why this launch belongs here. The University of Belize is the national university, carries a responsibility not only to educate, but to help cultivate the habits of thought on which national progress depends. Clarity, discipline, inquiry, memory, evidence, and engagement. We serve Belize best when we help deepen the country's capacity to think well about itself. In that respect, the work of the Belize Policy Research Institute deserves recognition and commendation under the leadership of Dr. Dylan Vernon. Let's give them another round of applause, please. Belpre continues to show what is possible when research is undertaken, not as an academic exercise alone, Dr. Defobab, but as a contribution to the life of the nation. This initiative reflects vision, it reflects patience, and a clear understanding that better public discourse requires better public tools. When the policy analyst, would report to us. I also sit on the advisory board for Belpre, and he would say, we sent letters to all CEOs of the government requesting the policies that exist, and only X amount of CEOs respond. So we need to hear from everybody, and we know the challenges that Belpre face in putting this tracker together. For our students, I see a few of you here, and I'm sure the president of the association will take this to them. This policy tracker matters greatly. A university education is not only preparation for employment, it is formation for citizenship. It is a discipline of mind and a widening of responsibility. To encounter policy not as an abstraction, but as a living part of the country's development, is to begin to understand more fully what it means to belong to a nation and to share in its future. For the wider public, this platform holds another promise. It can make public life a little less opaque, a little less distant, and perhaps a little more deliberate. It can support a culture in which disagreement is better informed. Debate is better grounded. I'm talking real debate here, Minister, not the one we've been seeing on the, on the TV the past couple of days. And national questions are engaged with greater seriousness. Belize needs this seriousness. Belize needs this seriously. We are a small country, but the questions before us are not small. They concern growth, they concern equity, education, governance, and sustainability. Some questions cannot be carried well by impulse alone, and we like to do this, right? How I feel. They require institutions to encourage reflection and support wiser judgment. That is what gives this launch its significance. So we welcome the launch of the Belize Policy Tracker as a serious contribution to the civic and institutional life of Belize. One hopes it will help deepen the quality of our public discourse and strengthen the culture of thoughtfulness, informed engagement that this country really needs. Minister Martinez, thank you once again for being with us. Your presence honors this occasion, and we're grateful for your continued friendship to this institution. To all who contributed to bringing this initiative to life, I offer sincere congratulations. May it serve Belize well. Thank you, and may God continue to bless the University of Belize, continue to bless our beloved country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our president, the president of the University of Belize, for reminding us of the importance of this practical tool to demystify, to make less opaque the policies that are in place, and to give everybody an opportunity to access those tools. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your welcome. Moving along, I would like to invite Dr. Dylan Vernon, the Executive Director of Belpre, UB, to give his own welcome, to share a little bit about Belpre's first year. I can't believe it's only 1 year, and to outline the road forward. Dr. Dylan Vernon, as I mentioned, is the current Executive Director and will go down as the first Executive Director for this new policy. He is a former ambassador of Belize to the European Union and is a long time serving civil society worker, defender, we can use all we could use all those. And an activist, we could add all those adjectives. And also working in governance to advocate reform. So I invite Dylan to come to the podium and give his welcome.
Thank you, Dr. DeForbab. Good morning, everyone. When Belpre was deciding who to invite to moderate today, the choice was very simple. The university's director of research has done a marvelous job in a sense, resurrecting the Office of Research at the university over the past few years, and we all see the results of it. So congratulations, Dr. DeForbab, on bringing back the research office. Minister, it is great to have you with us today. Before the session started, we were chatting, and I was thinking that, yeah, the minister has one of those really true, unique Belizean stories. In fact, we all do. As a young activist, I used to work in Bella Vista, his village, organizing banana workers, very radical thing to do at the time. And, and from Bella Vista to the cabinet, to the House, congratulations, Minister, a unique Belizean story. And President Palacio, I mean, I would have said this anyway, but maybe it's now the best time to say it. Belpre will not be here today without your support, your vision, the support of the Board of Trustees of UB and UB as a whole. And we are proud to be the newest institute within UB under your leadership. This week has been a very important one in terms of the world of public policy. And from Monday to Wednesday, and the minister just came from that, we had the debate of the annual budget right here in Belmopan. And if anyone ever asks you which public policy is the most important in a nation in Belize, I think if you say the national budget, you're correct. It is the budget that tells you a government's true policy priorities. You have to follow the money. What is money being put at is what government and society prioritizes as the key issues that they want to address. And we know, for example, that education and security get a lot of money, or much more at least than, say, human development and culture and youth governance reform, for example. And so it tells you where the priorities are. And so not only is it critical to get the budget right and to have people influence what's in that budget, it's also critical to study the budget and assess its implications for people. And just as it is important to do that, it is important to do so for all policy. On Tuesday, as our moderator pointed out just 2 days ago, the Belize Policy Research Institute marked its first anniversary, 1 year of organizational life. And I think that for us, while it's in no way comparable to the budget and the budget debate, we see this also as an important activity this week. It's been an intense year, very productive year from our point of view, in starting to pursue our vision for a Belize in which more of our public policies are informed by objective analysis of evidence. That, in a sense, is our essence. And to break that down a little bit, just as studying the national budget is important, so is knowing and influencing and accessing and engaging in all public policies that impact our lives. And in a nutshell, that is what Belpre wants to contribute to. For what is a public policy if it is not the official actions that we take as a society, as a country, collectively, to address an issue or problem affecting the public, affecting people, the nation? For sure, then, the public has to be central to all aspects of public policy. And too often, as we know, this is not the case. And this is where Belpre, with UB's support, is working to make a difference. Just a few highlights of our first year. Our staff has grown from 1, myself, to 4, and we have launched a student internship program, and I see some of our interns here today. I'll come back to that. We have an advisory board of 8 highly expected Belizean women and men. Henry Anderson, the director of DFC, is our chairman. I see we have another board member here in our audience, Jasmine Anderson, welcome. And of course, Dr. Palacio is also on our board. We have an office, a home in Belize City at the campus of the University of Belize, thanks to UB again. And we are engaged, we are integrating in the university as an independent but closely affiliated unit. And that word independence is important because while we are off UB, the kind of work we do requires us to also have our own academic freedom and independence within the university if we're going to have credibility and objectivity. We have had several public seminars, and some of you have been to them, the most recent being our Focus on Cuba seminar a couple of weeks ago. We have co-sponsored educational events with other UB colleague organizations and participated in dozens of UB and national conferences. Importantly, on the publication front, we launched our policy report series. This is indeed the core of the work we do. Producing a well-researched document about one issue of national importance with analysis and recommendations for public policy. And the first was the Belizean economy in the 21st century, which some of you participated in, and is still ongoing in terms of follow-up. And then we launched our Critical Voices series, and the Critical Voices series fills that space between our policy reports, which I just mentioned, and our newsletter, which is just sharing what we do, giving a voice to people who are doing research or have ideas on policy, but do not have a space to share those in our society. We have signed working agreements, MOUs as they're called, with national and regional and international agencies, including with SIB, and I see they're present here today, and also the Caribbean Policy Research Institute in Jamaica, which I want to highlight. They have been very instrumental in assisting Belpre in its formative stages in terms of how to make a policy think tank work within the university. We've been doing ongoing research on several things. One, and I was telling this to the minister before, on the Belize national budget process, and that will be coming out in the next couple of months. We have one that's ongoing on regulating campaign financing in Belize, and you'll be hearing more about these. And we have other research projects in the pipeline, which I won't mention now. But we do have an activity that I do want to mention coming up later this year, which is to launch our public policy training sessions. That is to train not only students here at the university, but stakeholders in policy across the nation, and offering policy training, advocacy training in the area of public policy. And hopefully, Dr. Palacio, next year, when the academic year starts in 2027, we have that dream of having a bachelor's degree being offered in public policy for the first time in Belize. So we are especially proud to share today here that Belpre was contracted earlier this year by the Ministry of Youth to coordinate the development of Belize's first, or next, I should say, National Youth Development Policy and Strategy. and you'll be hearing more about this one soon. And that speaks to the demand that we have been seeing for Belpre in our first year, where we are being approached by others, including ministries, to assist in the development of public policy, at least to coordinate the development of public policy. In other words, I think we are beginning to fulfill a space, a gap that was there in the Belize policy space. But let me get quickly now to what is the issue at hand, the Belize policy tracker. 1 year after our launch, we are proud that this launch of the tracker is happening during this week of anniversary. And we want to become our major and one of our permanent flagship products that's always there, housed here at the University of Belize. The tracker was conceived during our process of thinking about our strategic plan, and we reasoned that for us as Belpre to select which policy issues to prioritize for research and for influence, we needed to have a comprehensive understanding of the Belize policy space and of national policy issues. How else would we know the gaps and the needs if we don't do that? And this in turn then required a comprehensive listing of the policies and of the policies that were in development. But we found that finding policies usually meant time-consuming digging and follow-up and dead ends. And so we decided that if we were going to do this, we have to do a comprehensive creation of a data set that is easily accessible and searchable by everyone. And we decided to extend this idea not only for Belpre's use, but as a public service from the University of Belize and Belpre to the nation. And we set about creating this database with a goal of then eventually designing and producing the Belize policy tracker. Now, how did we do this? What was the process? In very, very quick succession after the planning and deciding what types of data we wanted to collect about policies. And this would include things like not only the name of the policy, but the date it was enacted or launched, its time span, the agency responsible, what type of policy it was. We have legislation on the high end of policy, but we also have policy statements and policy papers that were made, what type of policy, the status of implementation, and is there any assessment that was done of the policy? So we have all these categories that we had to create a database on. And this was led ably, this research, by our policy analysts in Belpre, Mr. Devon Paulino, who coordinated actually the whole process from start to finish of the creation of the policy tracker. Thank you so much, Devon. So yes, we went about doing the research and identified what is now 83 policies that we want to begin with. And I say begin with because clearly there are more policies out there, but we didn't want to have policies that were expired long ago. We wanted those that were more recent or inexistent and being implemented. And as I said, the type of policies scanned from legislation to executive policies and to policy statements and others in between. We collated and we categorized, we wrote summaries of each policy for our website. And importantly then, we had to say, how are we going to present this? And so we outsourced with the support of the ICT department at UB, we outsourced the design, the software design of the back end of the tracker. And we selected a young Belizean freelancer by the name of Tadio Bennett. And Tadio is here with us today, and he is the young man who is responsible for this policy tracker. Tadio. And after trials and tests, we're here today to do the launch. And I want to use this opportunity not only to thank Devon, but all the staff at Belpre involved, Mildred Tessikum, our outreach officer, and our office manager, Ms. Susanna Flowers. I won't get into some of the challenges that we had yet because I think that Devon will touch on these. But as you can imagine, it wasn't easy to put this database together. There was no one place we could go for everything. We had to be calling CEOs, we had to be calling other people in ministries. And there was a lack of, in some ministries, a lack of knowledge even of some staff members of policies that were in the ministry, which was very alarming. But there were some ministries, and it shows a difference, that in the first day, we got 3 or 4 policies sent to us. So it all depends on the ministry, and it all depends perhaps on leadership. So what is the product? The product, as you will be seeing, is a centralized and searchable and easy to navigate hub where policy and policy amendments are easy to access to everyone, to government, officials, to students, researchers, the media, the general public. It has direct links to official policy documents that can be viewed and downloaded immediately. It has concise summaries of each document. It has an interactive chat feature for discussion and feedback, which can be used for consultation on draft policies, for example. It has options for you to create your own profile and to receive policy updates and share policy documents. And it is regularly updated by a dedicated staff, including our interns at Belpre, who monitor policy developments on an ongoing basis. It is designed by choice to be built on and as a work in progress. The tracker, as I said, is hosted on the Belpre's page, or we have a page on the UB website, and it is also hosted as far as the back end, the database at the ICT, unit at UB. Let me end by saying this. The preparation and the length of the tracker, as I said at the beginning, could not have been possible without the solid financial and institutional support of the University of Belize. And it is yet to me another clear example of our national university, UB, giving life to its mission to become a center of excellence in research that contributes to Belize's development. So much appreciation goes to UB for making the Belpre concept come to life and for running with the idea of the policy tracker. Overall then, the Belize Policy Tracker seeks not only to inform, but also to promote a space for meaningful consultations and advocacy for policy development and reform. So Belpre I invite all stakeholders to use the Belize Policy Tracker to engage with public policy in a transparent way, an informed way, and a consultative way. By design, the tracker will expand and be fine-tuned. Additional policies will be added or located as developed. And in this regard, I end by asking for your support in pointing out to us if you see any gaps of policies that are missing, if there are any errors, and to also use it, importantly, to engage as the public with public policies that are important to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vernon, for giving us that background on the policy tracker. And again, congratulations on your first anniversary. I'd like to call to the podium Dr. Osmond Martinez, Minister of State. But before he rises and moves, I would like to give a little background. Dr. Vernon reminded us that you were raised on a banana farm in southern Belize. but oh, how that journey has transformed. And so, to give our audience some insight, you currently serve as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Economic Transformation, a position that he assumed in March 2025. In this role, he oversees the advancement of Belize's medium-term development strategy and responsible for a public sector investment program valued at over 2 billion Belize dollars. Prior to this, Dr. Martinez served as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, where he led a team of economists to advance national trade policies and strengthen investment capacities. His extensive public service career also includes tenures as Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Economic Development, the Ministry of Public Service, Constitutional and Public Reform. A strong advocate for integrating academia into economic policy making, Dr. Martinez holds a doctorate in economics from the Universidad de Baja California, Mexico, with a focus on poverty and social development. His academic credentials also include a Master's of Economic Development and a Bachelor's in Agriculture. I just want to note it really is important that we have the experts running the spaces that they are allocated to. Before entering public service, Dr. Martinez's career spanned academia and regional economics, including a time as an assistant professor of economics at Galen University and as a regional manager coordinating aquaculture production across Central and South America. He's the author of published research focusing on sustainable tourism, poverty, resilience, and agricultural production in Belize. Dr. Martinez has also represented Belize on the global stage, serving as the National Designated Authority to Green Climate Fund as an executive director at the Caribbean Development Bank. So that short description really shows us that he has moved from that banana farm down in Bella Vista, that your journey and professional background definitely position you as a leader who is deeply committed to reducing the nation's trade deficit, expanding public sector investment, and enhancing economic opportunities to all citizens. We are deeply appreciative of the time and the words that you're going to share. Dr. Martin.
Good morning. You know, I asked CEO Carlos Paul, I said, will Dr. Palacio, do you know if he will be at the event? And he said, let me check. So he forwarded me his message and he said, no, he won't be at the event, so you won't be able to meet with him. I'm like, do you know why? He said, let me check. He said, well, you know, he has an event to attend. I said, can you kindly find out? And he said, yes, I will find out. And he said, you know, he will attend a board meeting. And I said, can you check where? And then he did that for me, and then we started to call a few of the board of directors. I said, please don't attend the meeting tomorrow. With the main outcome that he won't have no quorum. So. And it worked out, you know. That's a strategic policy being put in place. You know, and I was talking to Ambassador Dillon just before this meeting started, and I was saying to him, you know, sometimes one word in a policy can make a big difference. And I will share a little story with you very quickly. So, along with the Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time, who is Senator Emon Courtney Knoll, and Senator Christopher Coy, we embarked on a lobbying for Belize to become eligible to the IDAS fund from the World Bank, which is the International Development Association's fund. Why that fund means so much to Belize is simply because it's highly concessional. Uh, Even though, the cost of finance in the global um, platform the global market, is very high, and it's a system that they use or a mechanism that was placed by the US Federal Reserve that when inflation is high, then they increase the cost of finance to reduce the amount of spending or the supply of currency or monies into our ecosystems to help to reduce inflation. So the cost of finance is extremely high. So with that said, in Belize, we are saying we need alternatives. We need to find a source of finance where the cost of finance will be low, and we started to advocate for it. We made some significant advancements to the point that we went and find a little country that many of you have never heard of, maybe, Eswatini. We went and we looked for Eswatini, and we went to Suriname, and we started to say, it's not only Belize that need this assistance, it's also Eswatini and Suriname, and we were championing it. I mean, practically we worked for them. So we made some significant way forwards, and then the World Bank executive directors, came to Belize for the first time. We were happy. We were making some big movements, and then all of a sudden, they look at us and like, oh, you won't qualify. Why? He said, because our policy says that the any country that becomes eligible should be a small island developing state. And Belize is not an island, right? So, coming from the banana farms, we have learned to take no, we don't take no for an answer, right? And so we say, okay, what if you remove the island then? One word. Just remove the island and then Belize will be eligible, right? They look at us and I'm like, in 50 years, the World Bank hasn't changed a word within a policy. 50 years. So that will require some real heavy weights to make that recommendation and to make those adjustments. No, we know Belize is lightweight when it comes to the global economy, but we understood that we had a tool and innovative finance at the moment, which was being spread like wildfire throughout the world, and that was the Blue Bonds transaction. And because of that, as a team under the leadership of Prime Minister Briceño, we went and we met with the G20, we met with the G7, we had different bilateral discussions and meetings with the UK and Canada, the United States. At that time, Ambassador Kwan was here. She was a champion and helping us to be eligible to IDAs. Then we met with Japan, we met with Germany, sometimes Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Eamon Courtney, they will be in New York, they were meeting with some people. Then Minister Koyi and I, we were all the way in Marrakesh, in Morocco, meeting with the G7 and the different players who would help us to take that decision and who would have that ultimate say. And then we end up at, I can't remember if it was CAP 26, 27, 28, something like that, but it was in Dubai. So Minister Koyi at that time, and myself, we were there. But even though we were present, and it was the end of November, beginning of December, at CAP in Dubai, we were worried about what was happening in DC because the board was meeting at that time. And that one word was changed for the first time in 50 years. And Belize became eligible to that source of fund, which is not an easy one to access. And We also got it for Suriname and Eswatini. Now, Suriname, they have found oil, so they don't need that finance anymore. And we met with the World Bank, and they're saying, Belize can have access to that finance as well. So our work is definitely showing some good dividends. But the important part is to understand how one word in a policy can make a huge difference. And then I will give you one more example. So, I come from a family that has never been in politics before. So I was the closest one to be, I mean, put it this way. When I became the CEO, I was the first one in my family to have access to politicians. Before that, we didn't have access to no politicians, right? And we didn't know anything about politics, and politics have its own science. A lot of people don't know that. It has its own science, its structures, and everything. I wasn't aware of all the structures that politics have. So when I started to campaign, I went to campaign with policies. With policies, yes. All my presentations were technical. All my presentations were with policies and how we can reduce poverty and how we can increase the income per capita and how important the human capital index is. So, and one of the party's political advisors, once he hit me on my side and you need to get political. And I look at him, I'm like, and what is that? But the truth is that policies is what made me win. Being technical is what made me win. Why? Because people are tired of politics. And that is the reality. You want to see results. You want to see that you will not be there just talking to people and saying lies. And so when I was in the villages and they asked me, he said, so what are you promising to us? I said, well, I can promise two things, And they say, what? I said that I will work hard and I will be accessible. I got another knock on my side. I'm like, hey, what's happened? He said, people don't want to hear that. They want to hear that you will build their streets. I said, well, that will come with hard work. Right? Or they want a better health system. That will come with hard work. Or they want to be able to complain to you. Well, that will come with accessibility. And then I started. I said, the only thing I promised was hard work and accessibility. Right? And then I explained to people. I say, if I work hard, you will see results. If I am accessible, then you will be able to pass on whatever challenges you have, right? So today, almost all my constituency have my phone number, and I don't hide from them. And I always told them, it will take some time for me to answer because I won't be able to answer 5,000 WhatsApps on a day, be in a meeting all day, and lobby for everyone. But I will answer. And I do my best. And then there is one day out of the month that I call it, I empty the bucket, right? And this is policies that we have because sometimes we always look at public policies, but policies are in every aspect of our life. Right? So I look at myself and I say, I have a day out of the month, I call it empty the bucket. So we go through everything. I make sure my WhatsApp is clean, all the requests, we call people, we do everything. I call my political team. And I say, we have to answer. We have to get back to each one. We visit whoever we need to visit, but we empty the bucket. And then we start again fresh, and that's on a monthly basis. And so I go back to them, I'm like, you see what I told you? I'm accessible now. Right? But we are also working hard. And that has made a huge difference. Ambassador Dr. Dylan Vernon, thank you for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here, talking about policies, and more important, to speak about public policies. Mr. President, I did everything possible for you to be here, so you know how much I appreciate, But to your staff here at the University of Belize, it's always wonderful to be here. I also see representative and the president, and my friend Fermin from Sacred Heart. And I wish, that Galen could have been here. I wish UWI could have been here. Because when it comes to public policies and national development, academia should be one, independently of which institution you come from. I also would have hoped that we would have more students present, which is very important for students to understand public policies. And sometimes it's so frustrating, especially when you come and talk about different items. And I will tell you why it's so frustrated, and I will tell you why I'm so happy that CEO Tania is here, because practically it's just she and I from the government side, at the policy and from the policy level and those who will help to execute those macroeconomic policies. And so CEO, it's very good that you're here. But it's so frustrating when policymakers don't understand the importance of academia. And I experienced it when I was in academia. So for example, is one of my research papers that I presented here at the University of Belize. And when I finished presenting that paper, I felt like a piece of crap, man. I felt worthless. I felt that I have invested so much time in developing a research, working on a research. I neglected my family so many times. And then there comes, that's the end of your paper. When I finished presenting that paper, I felt that I have wasted my time. And many a times in academia, we feel that way. And that is the reason why I always put academia at the top of my priority list. Today I was to be at an event in Punta Gorda, but I choose to be here because I understand the importance of academia. I recall when I finished presenting that paper, I was so excited to present it, I was so happy and I looked forward for it. And when I finished the presentation, I was like, okay, so what's next? There was not one government official when I presented that paper to me. And that was the end of a year free work that I did and that I believe that had some valid information that could have been used. Okay. Now, what have I learned from it too is, and just to make things more interesting, I sent it to every ministry. I sent it to the ministers and CEOs. I sent a copy at that time. And I did not send it with a messenger, I deliver it personally at the offices. And I remember meeting a CEO and a minister at an event, and I said, I left something at your office. They were like, oh, yeah. I said, and I started to have some discussions on it, and they didn't know what we were talking about, right? So it shows that the proper attention was not given to a scientific paper, right? And which is very, very important. When I see the University of Belize taking these initiatives, I feel so proud because the University of Belize is the national institution of Belize, it's the national university. And that by itself should also means that you're leading in different areas and being able to look at this policy tracker, which will be guided, by evidence-based policy development, is really helpful because Belize needed. Now, I was very curious, and I am very interested to learn more about it. And I don't know what is the direction that it will be going, and how it is heading and how it works. But one of the points that I am very, very interested on is how can, we integrate AI into the policy? Because I was asking Ambassador Dillon, and I say, Ambassador, but how will you monitor the progress of policies? And he was saying, well, we will be looking at this maybe every 2 weeks, we will be making some adjustments and updating it. And what we want to leave out from any policy is humans' interpretation. And I will tell you why. Because humans interpret things different. And so the outcome will be different. And I will give you 2 examples. First, the Bible. Everyone has its own interpretation about the Bible. Right? And second, politicians. During the debate, the same data, you will have 2 different sides saying it in 2 different ways. But humans are like that as well. Right? We as humans, we will be able to look at data on different angles. And when we look at it different and have different interpretation, then it's very hard. But how can you develop a criteria that is monitored by AI so that it can help to measure the productivity of the policy, whether the policy need adjustments, whether the policy is outdated, whether the policy need to be amended, whether it need to be removed. So I believe that AI will be critical into it. And I am happy to share this, Ambassador, President, and all the other members from the University of Belize, and which Gabi, one of our economists, Gabriel Holz, is here, and also Kaylan Mendez. We need to set up a meeting with IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, Ambassador Dillon, and President, and everyone as soon as possible. Because I was in Korea last year, at the end of October, beginning of November. And so what IDB is doing is that they will have the headquarters of AI in Seoul, Korea. But then I met with the president of IDB in Korea, and I said, this is a lovely idea. We support it. But we would like to have the regional headquarters of AI in Belize. And I was thinking, where can we start from? And so sitting here, I'm saying, starting with policies and public policies will be an exceptional way to do it. And I want us to maybe be aggressive in putting a proposal whereby we will not only say that we will monitor and we will help to give recommendations to policies within Belize, but let's expand it to the Caribbean. Let's expand it to Central America. Let's not be afraid to do it, because I believe this might be the first tracker in the Caribbean. I don't know. Maybe the first in Central America, maybe the first in Latin America. And you know what? Let's not be afraid to be the first. We were the first ones to implement the Blue Bonds transaction. We are the first one in the region to have a climate finance unit. Don't let it be the first one who have a policy tracker for the region. Okay. So, what is the important basis of policies? Okay. I always look at Einstein, when he developed that atomic bomb that, when he came up with that formula, it was just a 3 or 4 numbers. A lot of times, the less and the more simple the formula is, the bigger is the impact. So whenever we develop policies, the policies should not be complicated. Shouldn't be full of fancy words. It should just be basic, simple, practical, easy to interpret, and more important, very easy to implement. Because where we have some serious issues is in the implementation of policies. And if we fail to implement, then there will be no results. And that's very important. I want to assure you all that from the government perspective, from the government side, we are extremely happy that the university, along with you, Executive Director, Ambassador, and your staff, we're excited that you have taken an initiative that will contribute to Belize's national development, that will help that will help in the monitoring, in the accountability, and the transparency of having policies that will be practical, that will be able to help us to modify it. No, don't work in isolation. Meet with the Statistical Institute of Belize as soon as possible. Meet with the Central Bank of Belize. Don't work in isolation. Meet with our development partners. I see representative from the European Union, representative from Taiwan. We should have a coordinated meeting and maybe a coordination conference to discuss, bringing the persons responsible to mobilize climate finance, public sector investment programs. And then maybe you have it here, but one of the things that I really would love to see is that the policies will be broken into different categories, because a social protection policy may not be compatible to an infrastructure development policy. Okay? So it's very important. An economic development policy may not be compatible to a social protection and infrastructure development policy. So let us have clear understanding on the different policies and the different characteristics that each one should have. And then at the end, which is very important, even though they may not be compatible, they should not work against each one of them, but they should complement each other. Mr. President, I think I will have to send you a little invoice because I'm teaching about public policies. It's a pro bonus class. Yes, I will have to add it into my academic extracurriculum activities. But I will end by giving you one more experience about the importance of good public policies. And in Belize, we have very good public policies, but we forget to implement them sometimes, or we don't monitor them, right? So in Colombia, everyone can tell you about Colombia had a, if my history of coming from the banana farms to the parliament is an interesting one, their one is an interesting one as well, when you look at coming from practically fighting with the drugs cartels, a place that gained a reputation that was not the best one. Right? But in 2002, 2003, there was a policy that was introduced to empower and to enable a friendly environment for entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs at a certain age, right? And based on that policy, they managed to integrate the financial institutions, the universities. They also integrated the private sector and government. And based on that policy, when you look at, and Beltrade is very familiar with that policy. Actually, when I went to Colombia in 2018, it was through Beltrade. So that policy helped Colombia to be able to boost its economy and change all the dynamics after the issues that they had with the cartels. And it changed that dynamic to the point that Colombia has one of the most robust economic growth in the region, in Latin America and the Caribbean. And they're very innovative. When you look at Colombia's history, is one that is unique, but its innovation is very important. And I would ask each and every one of you, take a look at that. While Plan Belize makes a lot of noise in Belize, they had Plan Colombia. They had Plan Colombia, which is critical and very important. Mr. President, you have a big task with this policy because you will get more discouragements than encouragements. The financial burdens will not be easy. But we have to survive it. You have my support. It won't be an easy one. And I want to give you two recommendations today. One is that we can speak to our Prime Minister and Cabinet Secretary to have this tracker be presented to Cabinet as soon as possible. And the second one, which CEO Tanya will help me, it should be presented to the CEO caucus as well. One, simply to get the buy-in of the government. Two, to see how it can be integrated into Belize's national development. Three, that it won't work in isolation. And four, we want it to be, we are happy that you are saying, you know, we are celebrating our first year of, since it was established. But I would be the happiest person to say, you know what, 20 years down the road, we are celebrating our 20th anniversary in looking at the strategic policy tracker. I will be the happiest one to say 25 years. I will still be young by then, so you can invite me. No, we will, in God's name. And the more important aspect of it, you know, and one of the issues that I always look at is, let's not make it just an academic exercise, but let's make it one that will have real change and impact in people's life. Many a times we forget the real issues that are affecting our people. And so because it's not affecting us, we think it's okay that it's not affecting others. And so we don't give that term of urgency. And I will give you an example that has to do with policy, you know. And I'm not here campaigning because it's not campaign time, right? But I'll just give you an example for us not to make that mistake here. So for example, we have a beautiful village, Monkey River, right? The amount of studies that were done in Monkey River to mitigate the impact of erosion is unprecedented. The amount of millions of dollars that were spent is unprecedented. And while the grass they grow, the cold they starve. So while the studies were being carried on, the sea was swallowing people's house. And this is where I'm saying, while we must do the academic exercise, we cannot forget that the most important part is to find solution to the people. We cannot say we will spend 2-3 years on a policy to see what kind of electricity we will take to the indigenous community when they have been without electricity all their lives. We cannot say that we will not educate part of our population because there is no school and then there is a feasibility study that will take so long. Or you cannot neglect through a policy, because the important part with policy is it needs to have a lot of consultations, right? And this is why I'm saying it. When you develop good policies, macroeconomic policies, you have to have consultations. You have to analyze, okay, who will impact, how it will be impact, you know? So sometimes the easiest thing within government is to do no policy. Because sometimes when you put a policy in place, you realize you will affect the churches, or you will affect the NGOs, or you will affect the indigenous people, or you will affect everyone else. So it has a negative, at some point, it will have a negative impact in a group of people. I haven't seen a policy that has no impact in a group or someone else. All policies that are developed will have an impact. And I gave you the example at the beginning, you know. So how the World Bank had one word, you know, island, small island developing states. So right away, it removed a huge population that would not qualify. So I want to end by saying congratulations for the great initiative. But let it be the first of many, many years to come. I want to also tell you, it doesn't matter what, let failure of this new policy tracker, let it not be an option. And let us be clear that we will have more discouragements than encouragements. But also, I want to be clear that as long as I am in government, you all have a friend who you can count on. And you will have my support, and I will lobby so that we can keep this policy tracker alive for many more years as we move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez, for reminding us of the difference between policies and politics, for those inspiring words and action of hard work and accessibility and action, and for reminding us here at the university of the importance of the alignment between policymakers, academia, to ensure that the policies bring about the changes that they needed. So as you can see, we have the next part, which will be our symbolic ribbon cutting ceremony to mark the moment of the actual launch, and then we will go into a live demonstration of the launch.
We will invite the minister and the president to do the honors of cutting the ribbon symbolically for the tracker.
Good. Wonderful. And now we will have a live demonstration of the Belize policy tracker, and this is going to be done by Mr. Devon Paulino. But a little bit on Devon. He is the lead policy analyst at Belpre. He is an experienced professional in policy development, research, and education, with a strong focus on economics and its impact on development. Devon has served as a policy analyst with other organizations in Belize and in Trinidad and Tobago. He lectures at the University of Belize and participated in the execution of several national and regional projects. He is simultaneously pursuing an MPhil PhD in Economic Development Policy at the University of the West Indies, in which he will be assessing the impact of national policies on various economic outcomes. Importantly, Devon was responsible for the Belize Policy Tracker project. And again, whether it's 10 years or 25 years from now, Belpre, Dylan, Devon, your names will be noted in this great accomplishment. Devon.
Thank you, Dr. Deforbab, and welcome everyone. As you noted, my name is Devon Paulino, and I will be taking you through the Belize Policy Tracker as best as I could. I will not stress on the importance. Dr. Vernon has walked us through the process from research until where we are now. So I'm going to, but before I start, I would like to ask by a show of hands. This is not a test, but it's just to show the importance of the policy tracker. Since the start of 2026, how many of you are aware of any policy that the government of Belize, through any of its ministries or agencies, what kind of policies, or at least one policy that has been released since 2026? There's a hand over there, another hand. All right. Now, this is not to shame anybody, but as citizens of Belize, we should be aware of these things, and this is where the tracker comes in. It's a part of how we are going to, be that player in educating the Belizean citizens about the existing policies. So I will start by just sharing a brief video demonstration of the policy, and then I will do a live demonstration as best as I could. One second. It's just a little glitch there. All right. I will just show the video now. 1 second.
To the Belize Policy Tracker. Policies, click on Policies in the navigation bar to go to the page. After getting acquainted with the status and type legends, you can click on the drop-down to toggle its visibility. This gives you a clearer view of the list of policies in the table provided. If you prefer a clearer representation of this list, you can always... Welcome to the Belize Policy Tracker. To begin your search for policies, click on Policies in the navigation bar to go to the page. After getting acquainted with the status and type legends, you can click on the drop-down to toggle its visibility. This gives you a clearer view of the list of policies in the table provided. If you prefer a clearer representation of this list, you can always switch the view. To do this, go to Options and select Card View, which presents the policies in a grid, or List View, which presents the basic details of policies in a row layout. For this guide, we will be using the table view. This system allows users to easily discover policies through the use of powerful filters. To begin using the filters, find and click the Show Filters button on the top left. This opens a sidebar with optional filters to search by keyword, published year, policy status, policy type, the publishing entity, and additional tags. Let's try searching for a policy by entering some text into the text box. As you saw, the table refreshes to show the policies that match the keyword I entered into the text box. Let's expand the row to see more details. Here you have quick actions such as options to view or download this policy's document. You can quickly copy the link or share this policy's page to social media. If a policy has tags, you can click on its tag to find more related policies. To go to a dedicated page, you can just click the row for that policy in the table. On a policies page, you can view the name, the entity that issued the policy, the summary, additional details, and the discussion section, which requires you to sign in to join in the discussion. To view the policy, simply click on the View Document button, and this will open a new tab with the policy document. To quickly download the document from the policy page, click on the download icon. There you can choose where in your files you would like to download this file. Additionally, you can share this policy page directly to your social media by clicking the share icon and selecting from the available options. If you'd like to see other policies issued by this policy's responsible entity, you can click the issuing entity's name here to go to the entity page. On this page, you'll see the name of the issuing entity and all the policies they have released. You can change the display format of the list of policies to suit your viewing preferences. as well as sorting the list by the date published, date updated, timespan start date, or the timespan end date. From here, let's go to the list of public entities that issue policies, using the breadcrumb links at the top. You may also use the link on the navigation bar. On this page, we have the list of public entities. You can again adjust this list to suit your viewing preferences. You have the option to sort in alphabetical order, and use the text box to search for an entity by name. Remember, this database of policies is a work in progress. As we expand the tracker, some policies may not yet be included. If you know of a public policy still in effect that is not featured here, we'd love to hear from you. You can go to the contact page and use the quick message form to let us know.
Welcome now. Go through the platform and show you how to use the tracker. Here we have the home page, and as you can see at the top, there is a button for recently updated documents here, and you could click on it, and it will take you directly to those documents. Here, you will see the name of the policy. This is a policy that was recently released a month ago. And here you will have the option to view the document. There you have the actual document that you can read through. You could also download separately, and it will go to where you have files, the storage for files that you download. Also, that is of importance is the summary of the document. So as researchers, before you delve into a document, you would like to know what the document is about. So we've done the research, read through the documents to provide you with a summary, which is located here. Now in terms of the education bit and the public outreach and engagement, we will have a policy analysis section that will come from us, the research team at Belpre. That is not there yet. As we continue to develop the tracker, that will be a key feature. On the right-hand side, you have the type of policy it is. And here, you have a definition of the type of policy. If you just hover over it, you also have if it's approved in draft. It gives you that legend there to tell you if it's approved or not. It also has the issuing body and the year it was published. And some of the policies will have the expiration date of the policy. As researchers, that is something key that you would want to know as well. All right, so if I go back to the home page, there's a user guide there that I just showed you. Apologies for that. So there's a user guide that I just showed you on the if this is your first time viewing the platform, it shows the user how to navigate the platform. All right. And then, of course, sometimes as researchers, you just want to go to the policy, and you may not want to sign up. I will show you how to sign up to subscribe and other features that would be available to you as a user, but sign up is optional. And so here it's very quick if you do want to sign up, and that is a feature that is also available. However, it will take you to exploring the policies. Now on the left-hand side, you have various ways in which you can search for a policy. Here, you could search for all the policies that are in existence in the tracker at the moment. Just clear this. And there you have it. Like you've seen in the video, there are several ways you can view this. You can switch it to the card view, table view as well, and then a list view based on your preference. I will also take the opportunity now to show you that there are several background themes that you can use. And this is my preference. There's also that, right? So it's based on your preference. I'll use mine for now. Also, you could search by status, if it's approved, in review, or in draft. You could also search by the policy type, or by the entity, sorry, and by tags. At the top, as shown before, there's the legend that will explain to you as the user what type of policy exists or are in the system. So we have policy statements, executive policies, strategy or plan, legislation, or others. And then, of course, it also shows you the status, if it's enacted in relation to legislation, if it's a bill, approved, in review, or draft. You could also search by public entities. All right. Like I mentioned, if there is any policy that's missing, you could notify us here, and you could inform us in relation to that bit. Now, as I mentioned before, there is an option for you to sign up. This gives you a little more, so I've already signed in here, where you could actually go to policies, and again, you could view them here, and this feature will allow you to save or subscribe to a policy. So if there's a change made in the system or to a policy, you will then receive this notification. Now, if you go back home, sign in, you could have access to your dashboard where it shows you the policies that you have subscribed to, and which allows you to receive that notification. And so I believe those are the key features to the tracker. My developer is here if there are any others that I miss, but I would like to thank you. And this is the tracker here. And here we have our current sponsors. And so Dr. Martinez mentioned something key in terms of financing and moving forward. And so we hope that this list expands in the coming months, for the survival of this initiative. So thank you. Now we will welcome any questions in relation to the tracker.
We have a short time for some questions, not as much as we anticipated, but we can take a few questions about the tracker if there are any. Yes, good question. We had to make a decision in terms of collecting policies to focus on those that were inexistent or very recent or being proposed, policies that were being presented in draft forms or a bill. So I would think that more or less the oldest policy that would be in there would have started like 5 years ago for executive policies, but if it is, and we are focusing when it comes to legislative policy on new ones, so we're not, because there is a database that you can go to look at all acts. The government has on the Attorney General's office that database. So we are focusing on the new ones that are coming up. So to answer your question, if you want to look at an education policy from 2010, which I know you want to, it won't be on this yet. But in the future, it's a possibility to have a function of historical archival policies, but we don't have that as yet.
If I could add to that, Dr. DeFore, if you go into the platform, you could search by all time, and it will show you the most, if you go, it will show you the various time span or the year that is in the system of the published one. So we have some as far back as 2011 that is still in existence up to now, or that have been updated. Right?
Morning again, Kareem Osher. Really grateful for the work UP and the Policy Center is doing. Couple questions and comments. So for clarify, so is a policy the same as a law? And when does I'm not sure of the term to use, but when does the event or the item becomes eligible to be entered into the database?
Yeah. Before Devon shows perhaps the legend again of the various types of policies that we have, we're using the broad definition of policy of any official action taken by the government to address a particular issue or problem. It's a broad definition. And there are several categories you can use. We selected 5. We selected the following: a policy statement. Sometimes the government would just make a policy statement that we're going to, starting on this date, do this. And it could be 1 page, but it is implementable and it's a policy. And then there's an executive policy, which is one that would be developed. I mean, an example would say the youth policy that is being done currently with Belpre's support. That would be a policy that the cabinet will eventually review and say, this is our policy in youth. Now, that's an executive policy, but it's not enacted in Parliament. And then you would have the actual legislative policy, which would be the bills and the acts that become policy. Policy on tourism, for example, that has some sort of act involved. And the 4th level would be that of a policy strategy, which sometimes, and the example that Devon showed is one example of that. It's not so much of a policy, but the strategy includes policies or a policy approach. And the final is a broad category of other, where we have guidelines and regulations and other things that policy is buried in it, but you have to dig for it. So we're having that broad spectrum in how we define public policy. Yeah.
If I could also add to that, Doc, currently in the system, there are bills. And so it shows you that if you hover over it, it shows you that the bill is currently in review. And so that is how it's embedded in the system. What was the next part? Oh, so we're the research team at, there's a team at the Institute, and so we try to monitor these as best as possible, and in the future, we hope that we have tools such as AI to assist with that monitoring and notifying us to help to improve updating the system.
I just had a question in terms of, there are certain policies that have already had expiration dates, but not necessarily bodies that have implemented the policy details. So how does this tracker, or I guess would assist after like a policy that is like a 10-year deadline, but certain ministries and certain spaces haven't implemented their policy initiatives, I guess, as yet.
One of the things that this experience has sort of illustrated to Belpre is that just by doing this exercise, we're seeing a lot of lessons and indicators of what needs to improve in Belize's policy-making space. And one of them is just what you mentioned, that a policy can be announced and never implemented. And there are examples of that. And one of the reasons for that sometimes is that the government changes, and that policy was at the end of that last government, and it just sits there. Clearly, we can't do policy making like that if we're going to be effective at something. You can't just stop something. But that has happened since independence. Now, how we would deal with something like that is to have and maybe Devon can show it, but to have in our policy analysis section a comment that this policy was, a good example. In fact, let me not give examples because it gets partisan when you do that. But when a policy is at the end of a term of one government and is not continued, we would say that in the policy analysis section and inform that this is the history of that. And then there's a question mark sometimes on whether a policy is still alive. We came up with that. We don't know. This tracker will eventually want to be able to give all that information in live time, that implementation stopped, although the policy still has the date that it is still happening. And hopefully, as a database for research, for students, for academics, it can be one that says, one good research question is, how can we improve how we do policy in Belize? From getting the information from this database. The database is a tool, and I think that's an important thing to stress. It's a tool just like your phone, just like any other database, and it's how we use it to do research and to inform ourselves that will be important. And there are creative ways to do that. The database itself won't give you the answer. We'll have to use it as a tool with other tools, other information to be able to make it live and effective and productive.
I would also like to add, like Dr. Vernon mentioned, there is the policy analysis section that we will build as we go along. I forgot to mention a key feature of the app is also the option to make comments. And this is how, again, it could help our analyses, and it will also help the government of Belize in terms of, for example, we have here a National Health Insurance Authority bill. As a citizen, you could then go view the document. It's still in its review stage. View the document, and then as a concerned citizen of Belize, you could then make a comment about it. And it will help to improve, the bill that is in review. So I just wanted to mention that.
So I would like to make a couple of comments. I think it's a good exercise that would happen, that something like this is happening around the world, because I think it's something fairly new, right? I would want to stress in the importance of the private sector and in NGOs in providing that financial support, and that support. I appreciate Minister Martinez's support for it, but it's important for them to have that. The governments in place at those particular periods need to have this feedback that would help them understand if what they're doing is congruent to what they started as policies. So that's very important. So the support of the finances is very important. So I am very excited about it. I know people like Dr. Martinez will have a fun time going back and reviewing what the policies they have implemented have brought to the table. So still remaining independent will be important. I don't know how you'll get the money to, to do that, but that's my comment, and I congratulate the University of Belize and you guys on this very important project that will be an example for other countries. Thank you.
This particular policy is reliable, that it came from this ministry and it's already been approved by this ministry, and who approved it. Because sometimes, you can read a scientific document mention policies, but it's because somebody read a draft policy that it was never implemented. It's not even a real policy per se, but it's so famous that everybody, like the Lands Act, some policies that's been standing there for almost 20 years, for example. So do you have a metadata for all the policies that you're uploading? Because even though you might say, I don't have information with regards to whether it's active or not, in terms of research, it might be that I'm not interested in whether it's active or not. I'm interested in whether students can go in and search those policies and do the work. And obviously, once they finish, they could assist in updating whatever you have. But then that metadata for me might be very important. If you have any, like standardized way of inputting your data so we can know that it's reliable. And thank you.
Thank you for that. So initially what we did was we reached out to every ministry to gather the data, receiving those documents from them. And so a part of our due diligence is to ensure that these policies are the ones that are approved and in place and the draft. So we've scoured the internet, we've contacted officials from these ministries to ensure that the data, and most of it is publicly available. All right, so we don't have anything that is just gathered from somewhere randomly. But thank you for that, and we will strive to ensure that the data that we include in the system is verified and accurate. And of course, feedback from users and the public is always welcome. You could also always contact us. Our information is here. So, yeah, thanks. Any other question? Well, thank you very much. We just have our developer here to. All right. All right. So to also add to that, our able developer here, in the system, we do have versions of the policy. So on the document itself, it will show you the various versions. So he just demonstrated that in the system, it will show what version of the policy is there. So sometimes the government may update a policy, and on our end, we will do that. So it shows you what version it is and if it is the current version. All right, so thank you for that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Another hearty round of applause. As a researcher, I am super excited about this development. And I also want to take up the minister's challenge Dr. Vernon, I hope you're listening to this one. Last week, we held the University of Belize National Research Conference right here in this space, and our focus was on recent doctoral candidates from Belize, and they shared. I want to announce publicly that next year, the theme for our University of Belize National Research Conference will revolve around something on policy making in Belize. And it will also give us a time to 1 year from this date, it will be around this time, to really get some feedback on how this is working. So I commit to, it will have to be before the 19th of March, but I commit to that as a follow-up to this event. So thanks for the suggestion, Dr. Martinez. So this brings us almost to the end. I would like to call on Dr. Vernon, the Executive Director of Belpre, and an inspiration to all of us in the work that we do, to just bring some closing remarks and to remind you that we do have some light refreshments in the back. If some of you may have collected them when you came in, if not, there's still a few in their drinks. And please use the opportunity to reach out and have a chat with others. Dr. Vernon, the last words are yours.
Thank you, Dr. DeForbab, and thanks so much for moderating today in such an excellent way. Minister, I listened closely to your suggestions and some of the commitments you made. In particular, we will investigate how we can use AI to do some of the monitoring within the software. And I also like your invitation for us to share this tool and with senior policymakers. And one of the recommendations, one of the things that we'll be doing immediately afterwards is to promote the tool to the society. Social media, morning shows, meeting with CEOs, etc. And one of the requests we have is that the tool can be put as a link on the websites of government agencies and ministries as well as others. So it's right there. I'm reminded to say that yes, the tracker is now live. It is able to, you have a QR code here, you can go on it. It is now available to everyone in the nation who wants to use it. And there's a QR code you can use. And President Palacio, thanks again for being here and for your support to Belpre and to making this tracker a possibility through Belpre. I think that we cannot leave without thanking those key people who are behind it happening. Mr. Devon Paulino, our policy analyst. And I have to make special mention again of Mr. Bennett, Mr. Tadio Bennett, who created the software and is here with us today. And he will be with us in the future the journey to help to develop further the tracker. But the ICT department at UB will be taking over some of the work in terms of the back-end technical software work, and for that we thank them. I have to single out our student interns, and Belpre has a student intern program that we have began where it's very simple, using students to support and be a part of Belpre's work. And why we get a benefit from them and they get a benefit from us in terms of learning more about policy. And the two interns with us today, I'm going to ask them to stand. Ethan Duke, who wears so many hats. He's also the president of the Student Association here at UB. And Mr. M. Hoptet Diego. these interns were the ones who did a lot of the digging, did some of the summaries that we then reviewed, and contributed in other ways in terms of uploading documents, etc., etc. So thanks also to the rest of the Belpre staff, Shafana and Mindred, who have been anchoring the execution of today. And I have to mention one more, and that is, we were talking about if this is unique. And I think it's fairly unique, as we have looked at other examples of trackers worldwide. But one that was most useful was something called the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal out of a NGO in Jamaica. And they basically focus on tracking particular themes, such as accountability or budget. And I want to announce that one of the next phases that we have in this, phase 2, is to select particular themes to track in a more detailed way. And it could be the budget, it could be something dealing with governance, it could be health, but to do a tracker just for that. But that is phase 2, chapter 2, a little bit down the road, but that is in our sights as a vision. So it only leaves me to thank all of you who have come here today, from government, from civil society, academia, and to leave by assuring the minister that this will not only be an academic exercise, it will not only be academic, we will ensure that this tool is accessible to all, and we will promote its use and use the data we collect from it and from you to also inform our own work as Belpre. So thank you for coming, and please engage with the policy tracker. Thanks.